Hey everybody, welcome back, and on today's video we're going to be talking about the wholesaling business model. This is the most important video. If you guys are interested in wholesaling, you must watch this video because I'm going to break down the A to Z blueprint, step-by-step instructions, 100% free. As you guys already know, I'm dropping a 100% free course on my YouTube channel, so make sure you guys check out the first video and then just watch it in order so everything makes sense. So in this particular video, we're going to be covering the wholesaling business model. Now this is the wholesaling business model, right? You got your company here, and then you got three departments. You got the marketing department, you got the acquisition department, you got the disposition department. Now, the marketing department has to deal with finding motivated sellers, finding property owners that actually say, yes, I want to sell my house. Then the acquisition refers to acquiring a property, getting a house under contract at the right price. And then the disposition, which has the word dispo in it, refers to getting rid of something, which is we're getting rid of the house. We're selling the house to a cash buyer. We're selling the house to a buyer who pays in cash. A cash buyer. So these are the three crucial departments, right? You got the marketing, finding the sellers that say, hey, I want to sell my house. Then you have the acquisition, which is actually getting those property owners under contract, negotiating with them, and getting the house under contract at a right price. And then the disposition is actually taking that contract and selling it off to a cash buyer. So these are the three crucial departments in every wholesaling business. Now, we're going to go ahead and break down some examples just to kind of make this make a little bit more sense. So for the marketing department, you can do cold calling, you can do direct mail, you can do bandit signs, you can do PPC Facebook ads, you can do any type of marketing channel that you'd like, right? As long as it works and it's attracting property owners in, so then you can move them to the acquisition department where you actually present the offer, get under contract, and then move them to the disposition where you actually sell the deal, right? So marketing, cold calling, direct mail, bandit signs, PPC, Facebook ads, and so on and so on. There's other marketing channels as well, but just pick the one that fits with your budget and that you can be consistent with. Then you got your acquisition, which is getting the house under contract, presenting the offer, negotiating terms and price with property owners. Then once you have the property under contract, you move it over to the disposition, which involves getting the deal sold, email blasting buyers, negotiating with buyers, and also confirming that the buyer's earnest money is with title, which means that the buyer is actually going to close or else they're going to lose their money. Easy as that. So I hope this makes sense, these three components, right? You got your company here, you got the marketing department for finding sellers, you got the acquisition department for getting those sellers under contract, and you got the disposition department for selling those contracts to cash buyers. Okay, guys, I hope that's making sense now. Now, option one, right? You can do the entire wholesale operation yourself. So you definitely can, if you want to, you can do the marketing, you can do the acquisition, and you can do the disposition, right? You can do all three departments all by yourself, and it is tremendous amount of work, but there are some benefits to it, and there are also some disadvantages to it, which I'm going to get into right now. But by all means, don't let it discourage you. If you want to do the marketing, acquisition, and disposition all by yourself, that is not a problem. And hey, you'll learn from these mistakes. You'll learn a lot. So definitely, I would not shy away from this. It's totally up to you if you want to do the whole process yourself. So this is option one, doing the entire wholesale operation yourself. Now, option one, what are the benefits and disadvantages of doing it all yourself? So one of the benefits, and this is very important, is that you keep 100% of the assignment fee. If you find the seller, get them under contract, and then you sell that contract to a buyer, you're not splitting that assignment fee with nobody else. That is 100% to your bank account, 100% for you. Another benefit is you control the deal. If you're the one that has the purchase and sale with the homeowner and you're also finding the buyer, you control the deal. There's nobody stealing this deal from you. You controlling it. And also some benefits is you learn to build your buyers list, and you also learn to market the seller. So you're learning crucial skills on how to build a buyers list and how to market to property owners. So that is the benefit of doing it all yourself. The main disadvantage is you might not complete as many deals because when you get a deal under contract, you stop all advertising since you don't have enough time to do both. Now, this is one of the main issues with doing it yourself. See, what happens is since you're doing marketing and acquisition and disposition, the second you get a property under contract, you stop marketing, you stop cold calling, you stop your advertisement because you don't have time. And what does that mean? That means that your marketing slows down. The marketing is the bloodline of your business. So since the marketing is slowing down, you're not having that many leads coming in because you're focusing on this one deal you have under contract. You're trying to find buyers for it. It means that you're not going to close as many deals as you could because you're too busy either finding sellers or finding buyers when you have a property under contract. So that is the main problem here, that you constantly have to stop the marketing to go sell a deal. Okay. You make more mistakes by not working with a JV wholesaler who has experience. So that's honestly the two main disadvantages, that you constantly have to stop whenever you get a deal under contract, and it's just a process that doesn't flow smoothly. And then the other downside is that you are going to make more mistakes if you're doing this by yourself rather than working with a wholesaler in your market that is already familiar with the best title companies, that is already familiar with the price ranges, that is already familiar with the area, and can help you avoid a lot of these mistakes. So that is option one, guys, right? Because at the end of this video, you have to decide if you're going to do the whole process yourself, if you're going to be an acquisition wholesaler, or if you're going to be a disposition wholesaler. So this is option one. You can do it yourself. I just listed the benefits and the disadvantages. And now option number two, guys. Option number two is you're the acquisition wholesaler responsible for marketing and acquiring properties. You partner with a JV disposition wholesaler to sell your deals. So this is how it would look. You would handle the marketing and you would handle the acquisition. And then anytime you get a deal, you pass it on to the disposition so the disposition sells it for you. And then option number three, you're the disposition wholesaler. You build your buyers list and you help other acquisition wholesalers sell their deals. So if you guys are confused, let's recap. Option one, you do it all yourself. Option two, you become the acquisition wholesaler and you handle the marketing, the acquisition, and then you pass your deals to a dispo to help you sell it. And then option three is you actually build your cash buyers list, and then you work with other JV acquisition wholesalers who are doing marketing and acquisition, and you help them sell their deals. Okay, so brings me to my next point. Should I pursue a role as an acquisition wholesaler or a disposition wholesaler? As you can see, acquisition wholesaler versus disposition wholesaler. Now, if you guys are wondering, what should I do? Should I be acquisition or should I be dispo? Well, the truth, both roles can be successful. Whether you're an acquisition or a dispo, both wholesalers have made a lot of money, point blank, right? It honestly just comes down to which one you can be more consistent with. Now, responsibilities of an acquisition wholesaler. You have to work 25 hours per week minimum. You have to market to find property owners, motivated sellers. You have to track your marketing efforts, do paid or free marketing. You have to find the 4 pillars like the condition, price, timeline, motivation of each seller. You have to follow up with the property owners. This is very time consuming. Sometimes you have to follow up for 6 months to sometimes even a year. And you negotiate with property owners. You get the properties under contract. These are pretty much the responsibilities of an acquisition wholesaler. And then the responsibilities of a disposition wholesaler. You have to work 20 hours per week minimum, build your buyers list, qualify new buyers every day, 2 hours per day, figure out your buyer's buy box. Now, buy box just means where are they buying, what type of properties, how many beds, how many baths, and what zip codes, what's the max they're able to pay for each property. That's the buy box, right? You need to figure that out. And you need to separate buyers from hedge funds, flippers, landlords, and just simple cash buyers. Because you're going to get all types of different buyers, and you want to make sure you're separating them each and putting them in a category. And also, as a dispo wholesaler, you have to engage in Facebook groups to connect with other acquisition wholesalers so you can help them sell their deals. So you constantly have to put yourself out there. And you have to follow up with acquisition wholesalers and negotiate with buyers and get the buyers to sign the assignment contract. Make sure buyers' funds, EMD, are at title company. So make sure that the buyer's lender is in contact with the title. Make sure that the earnest money deposit from the buyers at the title company, and then get the deal to the closing table. Okay, so as you can see here, these are the responsibilities of an acquisition wholesaler, and these are the responsibilities of a disposition wholesaler. Now, from my personal experience, being the acquisition wholesaler is a lot more work, and so therefore you should be getting most of the assignment fee. You should be getting 60% at least, and the disposition wholesaler should be getting about 40%. Because acquisition does a lot more work, a lot more follow-up, a lot more risk. Dispo, all they do is sell the deal. They already have those connections anyway. So we're going to be breaking the differences down right here. So here are the main differences: acquisition wholesaler versus disposition wholesaler. So as an acquisition wholesaler, you have 100% control over the deal because you signed the purchase and sale with the seller. Also, you should be taking home 60 to 70% of the assignment fee as the acquisition wholesaler. I do not believe in doing a 50-50 because acquisition does a hell lot more work than a dispo wholesaler. Point blank. Don't even bother arguing with me on this. It's true. Acquisition is doing follow-up, paid marketing, taking a risk. All dispo is doing is selling a deal when they already have those connections with those buyers anyway. So you should be taking 60 to 70% of the assignment fee. Yes, there is a marketing cost. When you want to start doing a lot of deals, you will have to pay. This is not free. There are some ways to kind of get some free lists, but for the most part, down the line, you do have to pay for marketing, whether buying expensive lists, doing Facebook ads, or all sorts of stuff. Now, there are ways to kind of bring your costs down, but that will require a lot of your time. So it's either your time or your money, right? So that is the acquisition wholesaler. Yes, marketing costs and bigger spreads, less deals. So when you're starting off as an acquisition wholesaler, you will have bigger spreads because you're taking 60-70% of the assignment fee, but you're going to do less deals. Now, the dispo wholesaler, you have no control over the deal, right? You just are trusting that the acquisition wholesaler is honest and they're not going to go behind your back or anything like that because you didn't sign the purchase and sale with the seller. Now, as a dispo wholesaler, you're going to take 30 or 40% of the assignment fee. You have no marketing costs. You have smaller spreads, but more deals. Okay, because a disposition wholesaler is not only working with you, the acquisition wholesaler, a dispo is working with a lot of different other wholesalers. So they're constantly closing deals and doing more deals than an acquisition wholesaler, but they're getting smaller spreads. So as you can see here, you just have to pick which one you want to do, because at the end of the day, you're either going to do bigger spreads, less deals, or you're going to do smaller spreads, more deals, no marketing costs. You know, they're the same. If you really think about it, they're the same as far as making money. You can make the same amount of money as a dispo wholesaler and the same amount of money as an acquisition wholesaler. It just boils down to which one you want to do. Do you want to talk to sellers every day and qualifying, or do you want to talk to acquisition wholesalers and buyers all the time and just sell deals every month? Totally up to you which one you want to do. I suggest you pick one, or you do the entire process yourself. Totally up to you. Okay, now we talked about the different options, right? We talked option one, you're going to do the entire wholesaling process yourself, finding the seller and the buyer. Option two, you're going to be the acquisition wholesaler, only finding the sellers and getting them under contract. And option three, being the dispo wholesaler, working with other acquisition wholesalers and helping them sell their deals because you have a buyer's list. And now we're going to talk about option four. Now this option four, this is the goal. This is what every wholesaler's dream is. Okay? Now I recommend once you've saved approximately $50,000, you can start hiring for different positions. This is everybody's goal. Now, I'm sure, obviously, none of us have this money just laying around, especially since we're starting off. But this is the goal. This is the goal, guys. This is what we want to achieve. Well, guys, this is what we want to achieve. This is what every wholesaler should be aiming for. To close deals, whether you're acquisition or you're dispo or you're doing the whole process yourself. The end goal is to scale so you can get the heck out of the business and you can only work 45 hours per week, making 60 to 100K per month. So this is the business model, right? Eventually, when you've saved up a lot of money, you can start hiring people to do your marketing for you. You can start hiring acquisition managers to sell your deals for you. You can start hiring real estate agents to sell your deals for you. And then you got the COO, which is the Chief Operating Officer, which is the person that supervises everybody to make sure that the marketing is doing their job, the acquisition is doing their job, and that the dispo is doing their job. And then this is you at the top, the owner. Okay, so typically in the marketing channel, you want to hire one SMS virtual assistant. You want to hire 2 cold callers. You want to hire 1 supervisor VA to supervise the other VAs to make sure they're doing their work. That would be the marketing department. These people are calling sellers, finding property owners, and asking them if they want to sell. And if anybody raises their hand, guess what? That person gets passed on to the acquisition. Now, you typically need 1 or 2 acquisition managers paying 10 to 15% commission based. And I would recommend you also hire a comping VA. That all they do is comp properties all day long. And then once the acquisition manager has that property under contract, you will go ahead and send that property to the next department, which is the disposition, which now you can have a real estate agent sell the property to your cash buyers. The real estate agent is not going to go ahead and list the property on the open market. That's not what we're doing here. They can, that is another way to make money, but that is not what I'm talking about here. The real estate agent is just someone that you hire and you're going to pay 8 to 10% commission per deal. And what they're going to do is they're going to take that contract that you have with the property owner and they're going to sell it and they're going to find a cash buyer who then pays the assignment fee, buys the property, and that's how we make money. So this is the end goal. This is what your business model should look like if you want to make 60 to 100K per month, right? You need people in your marketing department. You need acquisition managers on a commission level, on a commission based. You need a comping VA, and then you need a real estate agent selling your deals in the disposition side. So this is the entire process. And then you got the Chief Operating Officer, which makes sure that the marketing is getting deals. They're making sure, the Chief Operating Officer is making sure that the marketing department is producing leads. They're making sure that the acquisition department is getting properties under contract. They're making sure that the disposition is selling those deals for as high as possible. And then they're reporting back to you, letting you know, hey, we got this many deals, here's the spreads, here's the addresses, and just letting you know how much money we're making per month. This is everybody's dream, guys. This, you want to take a screenshot, print this, put this on your wall. This is the goal. Now, it's not necessarily easy, but it's not impossible. So, now, this is where you guys are absolutely going to love me. So I've created a step-by-step process of what you need to do if you're going to be the acquisition wholesaler, a step-by-step process if you're going to be the disposition wholesaler, and a step-by-step process if you're going to do the entire thing, right? If you're going to do the acquisition and the disposition all by yourself. Okay, now these step-by-step this step-by-step guide is going to be in the Facebook group. So if you guys go to the Facebook group, you join, I'm going to have this as a PDF, so you guys will be able to download this and access it at any time. But let's break this down. So if you're going to be the acquisition wholesaler, step 1 is market to property owners daily. Step 2 is qualify sellers by the 4 pillars. And here are the 4 pillars: condition, motivation, timeline, price. Step 3, follow up with sellers using a CRM. Then get pictures of the property or do a walkthrough to confirm condition. This is optional. You can always do this later on after the property's under contract. And then you sign the purchase and sale contract with the seller. This starts the inspection period. The inspection period is the period of time that you have to back out of the contract with no repercussions. So you sign the purchase and sale contract with the seller. Now, boom, you're going to go ahead and now pass your deal to the dispo wholesaler. Right, you're going to then gather photos and arrange a walkthrough if necessary. This way, the dispo can email, text blast to potential buyers. Now, you're going to schedule any buyer walkthroughs, right? The dispo is going to let you know, hey, we have an interested buyer. Can you talk to the seller, get us in Tuesday at 12 p.m.? Boom, that has to do with scheduling the buyer walkthroughs. You'll call the seller, schedule that walkthrough. You get the buyer to see the property, right? Now, you're going to then, next step is to check in to see if the buyer is found. You're going to call the dispo wholesaler and say, hey, have you found a buyer? Any interested buyers? What's going on? If there's no buyers, then you have to cancel the contract with the seller, or you have to renegotiate the contract with the seller as soon as possible. You do this right away as soon as you're realizing there's no buyers. And then the next step is you actually had a buyer. They sign the buyer. The buyer signs the assignment agreement, which the dispo is going to send the buyer the assignment contract for them to sign. Then once the buyer has signed the assignment, you're going to go ahead and sign the JV contract with the dispo wholesaler. And now the next step is for the dispo wholesaler to open escrow, where they're going to give the title agent the purchase and sale, the JV, the assignment, and they're going to pretty much submit all of this to the title company, so then the title company can get the process started. Now, the next step is confirm with title or dispo. So you're either going to just check on dispo and say, hey, has the buyer deposited the earnest money? If they have deposited the earnest money, great. That means the buyer is serious and they want the property. However, if the buyer has not deposited the earnest money, you have two options. Either go and find another buyer, or talk to this buyer and say what's going on. If they have a legit excuse, we can give them another day. But after that, we're going to go ahead and find another buyer. Okay? And that would bring us to the end of the inspection period. Now, at the end of the inspection period, what I expect is you have a buyer. You obviously have escrow already opened. You have the purchase and sale contract with the title officer, right? You have a buyer, the non-refundable EMD. You are pretty much preparing now to close. And you can't back out of the contract without losing your earnest money at this point. Now, the next step is to wait for the title search, which can take 7 to 14 days. And if there are any issues, you as the acquisition wholesaler will call the seller up and tell them what they want to do. Either we will renegotiate or we will cancel the contract and get our earnest money back because the seller wasn't able to provide clean title. Then the next step is to confirm title company is ready to close on time. The next step is check with title if buyer is ready to close. Then there will be a preliminary HUD. Then the buyer and the seller will be scheduled to sign. Wholesalers, buyer, and seller review the HUD. Hazard insurance to title. Final HUD is created. The buyer and the seller sign the closing docs. The buyer's funds kick in, the lender's funds kick in, file releases to the record, file records, and payday. This is when the acquisition gets paid, the dispo gets paid, the seller gets paid, and the buyer gets a new property. Hallelujah. This is the step-by-step for the acquisition wholesaler. Now, if you're a disposition wholesaler, it's a little bit more different. So if you're the disposition wholesaler, the first step is the acquisition wholesaler got the purchase and sale contract signed with the seller. So now the inspection period starts that day. First step for you is to comp the property to make sure it's a deal. Then what you want to do is gather, if it's not a deal, then obviously tell the wholesaler it's not a deal. You need to renegotiate or cancel the contract. The next step is to gather property photos and arrange a walkthrough if necessary. And then the step after that, and don't worry guys, I'm going to be showing you how to blast your properties to buyers, right? How to email blast and how to SMS blast. But here I'm just explaining to you what you need in that blast. So you're going to need the ARV of the property. You're going to need the price that you're asking for the property. You're going to need photos of the house via Google Photos or a Drive link, some easy link that the buyer can click and see all the photos. Right? You're going to need the closing date. You're going to need the earnest money requirement, the non-refundable earnest money requirement, and you're going to need the title company information. So pretty much as the disposition wholesaler, you're creating a flyer. It's a digital flyer. Like you're going to email it to them or text it to them, and it needs to have the ARV. The one thing I forgot to put here is the address. Obviously, you need the ARV, you need the address, you need the price, you need a link to the photos, you need the closing date, you need the earnest money requirement, and the title company information where they're depositing that earnest money. And then one tip is don't add the rehab cost to the flyer. You don't want to add this because buyers are just going to try to negotiate you down. It doesn't help you at all. The buyer should know what their rehab cost is, so never tell them what you think it is or what it is on the flyer, okay? So once you have all these details ready and the flyer is ready, you can then go ahead and email blast, and then you can go ahead and SMS blast. Now, the next step is to schedule buyer walkthrough. So if any buyers say, hey, I like it, want to check it out, you're going to go ahead and schedule it. You just got to call the acquisition wholesaler and let them know you got a interested buyer. And if the acquisition can talk to the seller to schedule that walkthrough, right? Like, oh, is Tuesday, 12 p.m. okay? Great. That's good with the seller. Now the dispo is going to call the buyer, tell him, hey, does this time work? And you guys just communicate to get the walkthrough set up, and then the buyer will check out the property and see if they actually want it. Now, the next step is any interested buyers. If there's no buyers that are interested, then you, as the disposition wholesaler, you need to tell the wholesaler right away. You need to tell them, like, hey, we have no buyers for this property. You need to cancel or renegotiate at this price where I think we can attract more buyers. Now, if you do have buyers interested, the next step would be the buyer signs the assignment. Easy as that. Now, the next step, as the dispo wholesaler, you want to tell the buyer, right? Notify buyer that the non-refundable earnest money must be deposited with title in 24 to 48 hours or the assignment contract will void. Easy as that. If the buyer signs the assignment contract and they don't deposit the non-refundable earnest money with title within 1 to 2 business days, then the contract will void, meaning they're not going to be able to buy the house from you, and you're going to go ahead and find other buyers. This is just to make sure that we're not messing around with buyers that are trying to waste our time. We're only dealing with buyers that are serious, that are going to put their money where their mouth is, right? So you let the buyer know about the non-refundable earnest money and that you need it at a certain time or the contract will be void. This should also be stated in the assignment contract. And if you get my assignment contracts in the link below, it says that in the assignment contract. It says if this earnest money is not deposited at this certain time, then this entire assignment contract will void. Buyer has already signed the assignment. The buyer has already been notified about putting the EMD. Now the next step is for you to go ahead and sign the JV contract between you and the acquisition wholesaler. The next step, dispo opens escrow. So you, as the dispo, you have to go ahead now, open escrow. You're going to submit the purchase and sale contract, the JV contract, and the assignment contract to the title company. Then the next step, after escrow's already been opened and all the right paperwork is with the title company, you want to make sure that you confirm that the title received the buyer's EMD. If the title has not received the buyer's EMD, you need to call the buyer and tell them what is going on. If they don't have a reasonable excuse, then don't even bother giving them an extra day. Go ahead and find another buyer. Right? Because when we go to the end of the inspection period, we're no longer able to back out and get our earnest money back. We have to then forfeit our earnest. But if we cancel before, then we don't get any damages. There's no repercussions or anything like that. So you got to make sure with title that the EMD has been received. And if it hasn't been received, then guess what? The buyer's contract voids and you can go ahead and find a new buyer within the time frame before the end of the inspection period. Now the next step is to put the seller, buyer, and buyer's lender. I know it's cut off a little bit, but what it says here is put seller, buyer, and buyer's lender in contact with title. Okay, so the seller should be in contact now with the title company, the buyer should be in contact with the title company, and the buyer's lender should be in contact with the title company. All these people need to be in contact. And obviously the acquisition wholesaler is obviously also going to need to be in contact because they signed the purchase and sale agreement. Now, the next step is wait for the title search. You can expect to wait 7 to 14 days. And if there are any issues, then you will tell the acquisition wholesaler, and then the acquisition wholesaler will call the seller and either renegotiate or cancel. And then the next step, confirm title is ready to close on time, check if buyer is ready to close, then preliminary HUD, then the buyer and the seller are scheduled to sign. So you don't have to call anyone here. The title agent is actually going to call the buyer and the seller and tell them, hey, when would be a good time for you guys to come in? They're going to schedule them to come in. Then the buyer, the wholesaler, the buyer, and the seller are going to review the HUD. Once everybody approves, great, hazard insurance to title, then the final HUD is created, and that is when the buyer and the seller are actually going to sign the closing docs for real. Then the buyer's funds kick in, the lender's funds kick in, file releases to the record, file records, and payday. You get paid, the acquisition gets paid, the dispo gets paid, the seller gets paid, and the buyer gets a new property. Boom. Now this final wholesaler blueprint, this is if you are doing the acquisition and disposition all by yourself. If you're doing it all by yourself, here is the entire blueprint of what you need to do, right? So step 1, market to property owners. Step 2, qualify sellers. Step 3, follow up with sellers. Then sign the purchase and sale contract with the seller. That will officially start the inspection period. Then you need to gather property photos and arrange a walkthrough if necessary. Then you need to generate the blast details, right? It needs to include the address, the ARV, the price that you're asking. You need to be able to have photos via Google Photos, right? Or anything, right? You can use Google Photos, that's what I use, or you can use Google Drive. It just needs to be a link that the buyer can click, and all the photos will populate very easily. They don't need to be asking for access to view these pictures. So I recommend Google Photos. That's like $10 a month, right? So address, ARV, price, a link to the photos, closing date for the property, the earnest money that is needed, and the title company information. And once again, you don't want to add the rehab costs to the flyer. And then the email blast is the next step, right? You email this information out, you blast all the details out. You go ahead and do an SMS blast, you blast that out as well. And the next step is to schedule buyer walkthroughs. If there's no buyers interested, then you're gonna go ahead back to the seller, renegotiate with them, or cancel the contract if needed. Now, if you do have a buyer, the buyer will sign the assignment. The next step is that you notify the buyer, right? And also keep in mind that when the buyer is signing the assignment contract, it will state there that they need to drop the earnest money, the non-refundable earnest money, with the title company within a certain date, or the assignment will be void and they will not be able to purchase the house from you. Easy as that. They will not be able to they will not be able to take over the property at all, right? So the next step is just reminding them, right? Notifying the buyer that the non-refundable earnest money must be deposited with title in 24 to 48 hours or assignment contract will void. So just keep in mind that at this step, this should not be new information to the buyer. The buyer should already be well informed, because when they signed the assignment, it clearly stated that the non-refundable EMD needs to be deposited with title at a certain time frame. The next step here, this is just reminding them that, hey, just remember when you sign that contract, or when you sign the assignment contract, you do have to deposit the EMD at a certain time frame or the contract will void. Okay, so this is not the first time they should be hearing about this. This is more of a reminder of this. And then once obviously the buyer has signed the assignment, the next step is for you to go ahead and open escrow and then submit the purchase and sale and the assignment contract to the title company, right? So you open escrow, submit the right paperwork. Now moves us to the next step, which is confirm with the title company if the buyer's earnest money deposit has been received, which is the same process as I've been mentioning before. You have to make sure you call a title. After that time frame that you gave the buyer to drop the EMD, you have to call title and say, hey, has the EMD been dropped? Did you guys get the EMD yet? If they say yes, you're good to go. You can move on to the end of the inspection period and move on to the next steps. But if they say no, the EMD has not been deposited, then you have a situation, right? So there's two things you can do. Call the buyer and ask them what is going on. If they have a reasonable excuse and they're willing to put the money in the next day, then you can go ahead and give them an opportunity to do that. But if they don't have a good excuse and they're gonna need way more time than a day, you can, no problem, we cancel the assignment and you go ahead and find another buyer that can put the EMD in a day or two. Cool. So that moves us to the next right, to end of the inspection period, the end of the inspection period. Then the next step is to put the seller, the buyer, and the buyer's lender all in contact with the title company. The next step is waiting for title search. You can expect to wait 7 to 14 days for this, right? You have to wait for title to do their job, and title is going to check if the deed of the property, the title of the house, is in fact clean and there's no liens or anything like that. And if there is liens, they're going to bring it up and just make sure that the seller is okay with paying those liens, right? Which brings us to our next step, fix title issues with seller. So if there's any unexpected liens that we did not prepare for, you will need to renegotiate with the seller, or you will need to simply cancel. And if you do cancel, you will get your earnest money back, because when the seller signed the purchase and sale contract with you, there is a clause that states they must provide clean title. They must provide a clean title. They must be able to provide a warranty deed, right? And if they're not able to provide clean title, then we can cancel and get our earnest money back. So we're protected in the rare chance that the seller lied to us, or the seller didn't know they had a crazy outstanding lien and they don't want to pay for it with their funds. No problem, we can back out and no harm is done, even past after the inspection period has already ended, because the seller didn't hold their end of the stick, which was to provide a clean title, right? The buyer then would get their earnest money back, you would get your earnest money back if you put any, no problem. Then fix title issues with seller, that one we just covered. And then confirm title is ready to close. So you can email them, you can call them and tell them, hey, everything good to close, we're all good. If you got the green light from them, no problem, you just keep waiting. The next step is check with title if buyer is ready to close. And then the preliminary HUD. And then the buyer and the seller are scheduled to sign. Then the next step is the wholesaler, which is you. The buyer and the seller review the HUD just to make sure everything looks good before closing. Then hazard insurance to title. Then the final HUD is generated, because obviously everybody reviewed the HUD previously and they were okay with it. It seemed good. Now they actually went ahead and printed the final HUD, where now the buyer and the seller signed the closing doc. Then the buyer funds kick in, the lender's funds kick in, the file releases to the record, the file records, and payday. Hallelujah. Where everybody gets paid. This is where you get paid, the buyer gets a property, and the seller gets paid for their house. Okay, if you want these step-by-step guides, all you have to do is join the Facebook group. I give these out for free, and I'm constantly updating them if needed to be updated. But yeah, in this video, I hope this helped you guys out with understanding the different departments, the marketing, the acquisition, and the dispo. And now you have to make a decision. Are you going to be doing the entire process yourself? Are you going to be an acquisition wholesaler, or are you going to be a disposition wholesaler? I need you guys to make sure you decide what you're going to be. And leave a comment below, hey Nataly, I decided I'm going to do the whole process myself. Or hey Nataly, I'm going to be an acquisition wholesaler. Or hey Nataly, I decided I'm best being a disposition wholesaler. Totally up to you which one you want to be. This is your life. This is your company. Okay, so I want you guys to leave a comment below. Let me know which wholesaler you're going to be. And also make sure to join the Facebook group, because I will be dropping these PDFs for you guys to easily get access to whenever you need them. Also in the Facebook group, we are doing cold call sessions together. So I will be on my dialer cold calling, and you guys will also be on your dialers cold calling your list. So we can all just be a community and like do it together and just really push you guys to get your first deal. I'm not charging at all, and I will never be charging. I will never sell a course. That is not what I want to do in this lifetime. So keep watching. Stay tuned for the next video. I'm going to be dropping way more value, showing you guys exactly how to find those cash buyers, exactly how to find those sellers, exactly how to qualify them, exactly how to get them under contract, exactly how to negotiate with them. I'm going to teach you guys everything you need to know.